live on something, I don't know. Dun, dun, dun. We're going around doing our checks. Our problem is first. Allegedly I'm live, but I don't know. Probably 1 second. Oh, I am live. Nice. Live with no one watching. Ha 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 ha. Give us one moment. For anyone who's watching the recording, give us a moment. And how do I... Is it right? My nose is itchy. Live video. Live Irish Medieval, I suppose. Public. Next. Instagram is difficult to work with. And then if I click on... Am I walking? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what I'll do as well. That's why I'm probably coming out slow. Give us a second. Instagram. Go down. Paste a channel. When it does that, it means it's probably working. And then I'll quickly jump around. Jump around. Difficult. It'll probably connect at some stage. I don't know. And I've tried to look up Facebook, see what the story is there, but I still can't work out how that's supposed to work. But I'll get it at some stage, I guess. I don't know. Just let me do one or two things. Plug one or two things in. Give us one moment. Bye. Oh. Right. Oh my God. I had some coffee there, and I think it's chucking away. I don't know. Somewhat doing its job, I guess. No clue. Bum. Drinking yesterday's water. Nice aftertaste to it. Yum, yum, yum. Absolutely delicious. Whoa, why is my thing jumping down? Da, da, da. Wow, that's diabolical. Am I not getting any feedback? I have a bunch of nosy crows and birds coming in. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Right. Let's start waffling away. Bump. So originally, this was meant to be a live stream. Okay, that came out funny-ish. I'll change it to this one. Yeah, so originally we were supposed to do a live stream on the old Irish Scholar, but we sort of had to change that. Just a second there. The sound was working because I'm getting nobody. Bum, 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 bum. Default. Is that better? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Keep it to that. Dun, 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 dun.
No chatty people this morning. Screen share, invite, settings. I might do. Oh yeah, there we go. Audio, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Yeah, it's working fine. It's grand when you have other people on. You can only ask them what the sound and stuff is like. But when it's just yourself, you forget these things from time to time. But yeah, we originally were going to have a guest on to talk about the old scholar as seen here. But what happened is that we just had complications in time and stuff like that. So it ended up, he just wanted to change times and stuff. So, which is acceptable because this whole month has kind of been all over the place anyway. So people get moved and changing of times and all that kind of stuff. It's to be expected, really, isn't it? Like, good. Am I not getting pushed whatsoever? Why do I even come on at this time? You see, 10 o'clock is absolutely terrible to come on. I was originally the original plan was for us to come on at what was it, 2, 3, 4 hours earlier than this with Mihal and Dr. Owen O'Neill to do cattle raiding. We were going to talk about cattle raiding and stuff, and that ended up getting put aside for this one. And then that got all changed and cancelled and all sorts of things like that. I don't know where it's at right now, but at some stage we'll move it somewhere where it's probably more acceptable because this timing it's diabolical to try to get numbers on. So yeah, what I'll do next time is I'll go way earlier than this because I think this is way too late for my main audience and stuff. So we'll try to do it way more earlier next time. Definitely next week because next week we'll be talking and covering cattle raid next week, and I'll be covering that with Dr. Owen O'Neill and Mihal. Dr. Owen O'Neill will be looking at more of the southern Tura and stuff, and Mihal will be covering the what was it called? The northern. So yeah, there's that. Do you know what I forgot? I forgot that as well. Boom, boom. Yeah, there's so much stuff. Because I did this literally got changed around only a few hours ago, so I was literally just there this morning, put some coffee inside of me, and then started put this presentation together, like as you do, like so. Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, we'll move on the old conversation a wee bit over to the old Kel Owen and the Donegal Kingdoms. Has people been picking up this book? We don't have any chatty people on right now. For anyone who's watching the restream to this, don't have any chatty people on right now, so I'm basically just talking to myself. I have the people just scrolling by, which is grand, and it would be better if Blaster and YouTube promoted this better. I don't know. So some people they manage to get on and they get 100 straight away. Rachel, no problems getting the hundreds straight away. But at the same time, this is just a funny time. And it's funny because Rachel normally gets way more numbers than I do. And she does it around this time, like so. I don't know. But yeah. That new book, Ken Owen and the Donegal Kingdoms. Out this what was it, last month and this month, depending on where you're paying it from. I noticed the four courts had copies of it being sold out in September, late September. They were selling copies of the Kenloan and the Donegal kingdoms from 800 AD to the 13th century. If you don't know Kenloan, you'd be looking up the old history of the MacLucklans and the O'Neills and various other factions that branch out of the Kenloan. And this basically covers the history of them during the Viking Age. So it's definitely an amazing book to get, especially since the Kenloan were pretty much dominant as sort of over kings, high kings, depending on what interpretation, what wording you would use for them. So it's definitely a book you should get, especially if you're into over kingship of Ireland. Like if you're looking for the kings of Ireland, the Kenloan and the Donegal kingdom is definitely the one to get, you know, because you're talking about, a whole load of massive history and stuff. Especially if you got into the Viking history, for example, where Claire Downham's book, amazing, magnificent book came out, Viking Kings of Britain and Ireland, and you kind of want more detail on that one. I definitely would go after the Kenloan and the Donegal kingdoms. Oh, how's the boys? Oh, the men joining up now, or is that late to pop up on my side? How you keeping? How's Mihal tonight? I was saying this all got changed around at the last second, so I ends up popping in by myself at the end of it. If I knew you were still up, Mihal, I would have sent you an invite, especially to do with this one on the old Kenloan and the Donegal kingdoms. What was it called? Because, geez, Mihal, you must know a ton on the old Kenloan at this point, like with the amount of research done. But as you were saying, Jesus, you had an awful time when your phone got damaged and you end up losing a whole load of your research there on the likes of the Kenloan and stuff and the O'Neills and stuff, especially when it's on your side of the road. Like, I'm here listening, going to look for the book next month. Thank you for throwing the name of the book. Yeah, yeah. Obviously, first and foremost, definitely have a look at Claire Downham's book, Viking Kings of Britain and Ireland. That I thought that book it mostly concentrates on the men of Dublin, the Enail, no, not the Enail, the Emers. And that was an absolutely magnificent book to get a hold of. So I assume this one will be top notch as well. Like, to be quite honest with you, it's not the only book coming out this week. I'm going to cover a book there on the late medieval period because I was talking to both of the writers of it, and one of my Patreons is thankfully, huge thank you to her, like, is gifting me that book as well. Like, so geez, absolutely means a ton, especially this month and stuff, everything going on. How's Shane? Shane the man. Love the channel, definitely getting the book. Always love Viking Age and the Gallo Glass. Yeah, that period, you see, don't get me wrong, I love the early medieval period with the saints and scholars and stuff. Absolutely love it for what it is. And I love that kind of early medieval Gaelic warband on Gaelic warbands, that kind of Fid McCool style. But the Viking Age for me is when warfare really opens up for the Irish and stuff. Like even this morning when I was doing my short on Donegal Dunn, and the way Donegal Dunn, although he's seen as just King of Tara, which many people would see as, King of Ireland and stuff, especially when he gets that cattle tribute, it's strange because the Kingdom of Dublin, which was sacked by Donegal Dunn, which may apply that it was subjugated by Donegal Dunn and may be giving tribute to Donegal Dunn, but there's no written source to confirm that, are still raising a force of 7,000 men. And as I was saying over in the conversation in the shorts over, Dublin can only raise 120. Where the hell is 7,000 come from? The only people who have the ability to raise 7,000 is the Enail. Like the Enail quite literally have was 8,000 men. So they're the only ones with the ability to do that, So it's definitely an insanely exciting time, and definitely a time that needs far more study for sure. Like, 2 years worth of research thrown in the bed. Man, I would have hung myself off a tree. Like I was just, you see me when I don't get my way with history and stuff. I have a complete panic attack, man. I just, if that happened to me, I would have just lost it, man. Yeah, that the other Northern Nail branch. I haven't done much reading on them, to be honest with you. Mihal, I put it like I can't even remember the correct way I would pronounce it. Which to be honest with you, because I was doing courses on them and stuff, I actually did look up the correct way to pronounce it. I know my brain is just, because I haven't been pronounced. You see, the way my brain works with Old Irish is I have to keep on top of it like all the time. And I haven't touched that word for a while in Old Irish. I completely forget how to pronounce it. I'm not one of those people that can just suddenly pronounce perfect Irish and stuff. I need to, and it's the same thing with my Japanese. I haven't been speaking Japanese properly for some time, which is weird because I live in the middle of Japan. But because I haven't been having big conversations with people, all my Japanese poof, in the bin. Like I just even responding to people, I'm like, konnichiwa, arigato, you know, just complete fog like. And that's like pretty much every morning for this whole week because wife's over in Tokyo. So this whole week speaking Japanese has been all like foggy and stuff because my wife does all the talking for me. Like, and the only time I was speaking, well, butchering Japanese by myself was when I was working. I was working up in the American base, but I was working with Japanese people and I was working over in Pizza Hut and stuff as well. Like, so that was the only times I was speaking Japanese by myself. And I was starting to pick it up like slowly but surely but stopped it. And then if I don't speak a language for a while and stuff, you know, and I can't even learn from a book. I have to like literally pick up the accent and everything off people. Brian claims, does he? D. Brian Baru claims a connection to them. That's interesting. The Irish Golden Age is grand. I love it for what it is, which is the era of saints and scholars. And it's always the banter. Like, you could pick any saint, and you're going to get an absolutely amazing story off them, which is always be funny. It's always going to have some lesson involved, you know, and you get a good insight to what life was like during the medieval period. As long as you're not reading the Victorian text, the Victorian text can be funny because it's always from a Victorian perspective, which is always nationalist. So they'll always write, you know, St. Bridget off as running around with a tricolour fighting British people. And it's like, where are these British people coming from? British people being the Vikings and stuff, you know? Uh, it's such a great theory. Can't wait to read more. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good one. All right, like, hey Philip, good to see you. Would you know what the lads on the cover are eating? Eating. Oh yeah, that is the horse meat. So that was actually, funny enough, is done by a later interpretation by Gerald of Wales, and there's certain areas of Ireland that has a certain level of horse, butchering the word horse this morning, horse worshipping going on. God, I can't remember her bloody name right now. The goddess that can transform from a horse to a person, and she married a man, and yeah, so this man married a goddess, and she could turn into a horse. So there's a certain level of horse worshipping in Ireland, and also horse meat is taboo in Ireland. You're not allowed to eat horse meat. So this whole scene up at the top makes no sense. But Gerald of Wales claimed Irish people used to eat horse meat. They used to, for their kingship, jump into a bat and get jiggy jiggy with a horse, and then enjoy the meats and batten the meat afterwards as part of the right to kingship in Ireland. But it makes no sense because what was it called? That's way after the period of sacrifice, because that sacrificing in Ireland became more or less, a sacrifice, not having meat for Lent and stuff. So by the time you get into the 5th century, any form of sacrificing like that, it's non-existent from my interpretation. So that would make no sense from a form of kingship. But you know what Gerald of Wales is up to? He's trying to demonize the Irish. So he's trying to make out that the Irish still do that sort of sacrificing. They eat meat, which is considered taboo, and also getting jiggy jiggy with a horse as well. You know what Gerald of Wales is up to. So that image there is meant to be, I'm assuming, because the cover is called the Kennel Owen, it's meant to be the Kennel Owen pushing for their kingship, because the Kennel Owen are always pushing for kingship in Ireland. And at that point, when Gerald of Wales was going into Ireland, it was the MacLachlan's and the O'Neills that were pushing for kingship, and they were the descendants of the Kennel Owen. So he's probably demonizing the O'Neills. So probably something that pops up again and again and again. And given that the O'Neills are still very dominant politically, both in the Irish American world and in the Irish world, there still could be an image that would reappear again and again. Like, you still, even in sports in America, The amount of famous O'Neills are in there, even in the African American world, the people running around with the surname O'Neill, which is related back to Irish high kingship, like so. An imagery that definitely demonizes the O'Neills might rear its head over and over again. So definitely an important image even today, like to demonize not just the Irish, but anyone who has that O'Neill surname, perhaps depending on its context. I'm the same. Irish is terrible because I don't use it enough. Plus, you're speaking in Ulster Irish, which is terrible anyway, compared to the superior Munster Irish. I'm mastering a role-playing game centralized around the Dalrida in the late 5th century. That's a pretty exciting time. They're on Kennel Own right now, plotting to kill. That sounds like an exciting game. Is that are you basing that around the Dungeons and Dragons? I highlight that one for everybody else. But are you basing that on Dungeons and Dragons right now? I still ain't got the hang of speaking proper English here, neither I. Like, my English is absolutely terrible. No, Brian claims your dyslexia. Where would you be without me? I went to a private English school. That's where I realized my English wasn't much better either. Oh God, we're just butchering everything. Like we're neither good at English nor Irish, never mind anything else. But I would say definitely pop onto YouTube and go from there because there's some amazing the YouTube, especially back 10 years ago, 2011 and stuff. Jeez, some amazing Irish YouTubers were popping up back in the day. They've all immigrated over to TikTok, but they might end up immigrating over to Instagram next. I think everybody is going to end up immigrating because of recent stuff that's happening politically and stuff. I think Michal will probably correct me here on this one, like, but I think everybody will end up immigrating from TikTok over to Instagram in the next year or so, which I'm already building up a base from. So we'll see. But you can, I think multi-streaming, they're definitely pushing. Like, I'm on multi-stream right now, allegedly. And yeah, I think everybody's pushing for multi-stream. Am I actually? 1 second. No, I'm not actually. My Instagram is still acting up. I don't know. I think cultures put their own spin on their own. Yeah, very true. Everyone hit the like button. Helps the YouTube push to live. Live on YouTube and nowhere else right now. I was supposed to be live on TikTok, but I'm still trying to work out how to get live on TikTok with multi-stream. I know how to do it singular by itself, but when it comes down to this multi-stream that I'm on now, no clue how to do it. Instagram is so temperamental. Facebook is temperamental. YouTube is the only one that's really, really easy to use right now. Bum, bum, bum. Or maybe it's just maybe Facebook is just temperamental to me because Rachel can get it up and going easy enough. Like it's just every time I put it on, it just goes private by default. I don't know what's going on there. Like maybe I've done something to annoy Facebook. Boom. Do horse boys? I'm assuming you're talking about the oh God, their names are out of my head. Oh, I got the spelling in my head, which is crazy. Oh God, 1 second. Oh, it'll come back to me. Do horse boys have horses when riding? I hope so. Well, if there are horse boys, you must be. Are you talking about kerns? Are like who are professional cat raiders? Would they jump off their horse and stuff? Yeah, they would take it. Like if you're looking at, especially late medieval documents and stuff to do with the burghs and stuff, they have depictions of them with quick access, being able to jump on and off their horse with their armor. But their armor, they have Anglo-Irish armor. There's effigies of Anglo-Irish armor like all over Ireland. Just type in effigies Anglo-Irish armor, and you'll find tons of it online. But you can see compared to our European counterparts, which especially the Gothic armor of Germany, where they go bigger and thicker and so on and so forth, because they're looking at cavalry charges more. The Irish get more flexibility to be able to jump on and off their horse for cattle raiding. Like they're always adjusting their armor for cattle raiding, because cattle raiding is just a huge part of Irish warfare. So Anglo-Irish armor is adjusted for jumping on and off a horse. So yeah, they would bring their horses in to hobblers. You're talking about hobble horsemen. that's the one, because the horse is called Hopla horse. And the horse is adjusted for rating on and off. Recent thing, actually, my Patreon, everyone over on Patreon pointed out to me, is that it is not referred to as a Hopla horse in the early medieval period. In fact, as of right now, we're not 100% confident what horse they used during the early medieval period, which is interesting, isn't it? So, what horse did they use for cattle raiding? We know they used horses during cattle raiding, but what's interesting is that they must have had bigger horses as well during the early medieval period, because they have chariots throughout the entirety of the Viking Age, even into the period of Brian Brew. They have chariots and they have laws for battles. So we know still in the 10th century, when they are having battles, they have chariots. They're not using it per se in the battle, like they're not charging into enemy lines. But when it comes down to getting equipment, people off the battlefield, all that sort of stuff, they're still using chariots in the 10th century, because there's laws to reflect that in the 10th century, even leading up to the Battle of Clontarf, which is fascinating. So they must have had a much more stronger horse, because going into the High Middle Ages and the late medieval period, chariot disappears. There is no chariot after that period. So why is that? Is it because they're using carts more, or is it the fact that they're more reliant on the hobler horse, which is a breed, a breed that starts to, get bred inside between Ireland and Scotland and stuff. You know, the Gaels, yeah, that cattle they kind of warband influences from, what was it? You're right. The influences of warbands in Ireland from France with the Gauls from 300 BC to 100 AD is definitely there, because you can see it with the usage of language and stuff. Now, I don't specialize in Gaulish language of that era, like, whatsoever, and I barely even specialize. I don't specialize. I just outright don't specialize in early Irish language of those eras and stuff. So what the pronunciation is and what exact words they are, it's out of my head. I did get taught this, by the way. I actually in first year went to a class where this was explained to me, and I had the Irish words. My actual copybook is way in Ireland and stuff, so I can't even rummage through anything right here because I'm over in Japan, like. So yeah, you're bang on right. There is a massive influence. If you're actually ultimately saying that there's a massive influence between the Gaulish war bands in France and in Ireland, yeah, big time. Even the usage of words, even because in Ireland we have the Uglucks, which are young cattle raiders between the age of 14 to 25. And there's meant to be a usage of language with them, which is so similar to the Gaulish war bands, which also most likely did a military service between the age of 14 to 25. So even the fact that there is similarity in languages and the way young fellas have been used and stuff on the battlefield, and plus myself and Shane Kent were talking about this 2 days ago. I gave him an old phone call in the ring, and we ended up talking about the similarities between Rome, the skirmish men in Rome in the 5th century, just with the collapse of the Roman Empire. The skirmishers are so similar to the Irish kerns in the 5th century, the descriptions and stuff. And on top of that, the clear airy and our understanding of mercenaries within the Roman Empire and stuff. Clear airy were the King's War Band in Ireland. There's definitely similarities between the way regular Roman frontline infantry were and the clear airy. There's definitely similarities there. Plus, like the 5th century, you're not looking at pure Celtic anymore, which is the era of Niall of the Nine Hostages. You're now looking into more kind of Hiberno-Roman finds in Ireland, and there's so many Hiberno-Roman finds in Ireland because of all those Roman influences that are coming in with the likes of, because this is also the era of St. Patrick as well, like, so it's absolutely fascinating. The Dalrida claim to be part of the Kennel Owen, which I wouldn't be surprised of. I reckon there's like a thousand links between the Dalrida and the what was it called, Kennel Owen, because of the fact they're literally living on top of each other, like, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. The O'Neills. I would. Borrowers? I would say the O'Neills are more borrowers, but Jim, you are the O'Neills, so if you want to say that about the clan, you can say that about the clan all you want. Da, 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 da. See, Mihal doing what I do literally all the time, misreading everyone's comments. That sounds awesome. I can't even remember what I was yapping on about. Picking bam bam bam. Oh, I'm trying to read some of these comments here. The Irish supplement is called Pagan Store. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll just highlight that for a second while I move on to the next one. What's tickety talk talk talk? What is TikTok? Just type in TikTok. It's if you're into YouTube Shorts, especially the shorts and stuff I've been producing, that's what TikTok is. It's just literally just shorts after shorts after shorts. But I can bitch about TikTok because I'm not live on TikTok. But TikTok is bought by Israel. Israel owns TikTok now, so you want to keep an eye on that one. Well, it's technically bought by America, but I think it's sub bought by Israel right now. So it was Chinese. The Chinese owned it, and then they sold it to a sub company owned by Israel. So they straight away from the get-go started putting in some dodgy stuff, but it's also under America, so we'll see where that's going because we all know what's going on there. If I haven't already cursed my bloody algorithm just now, the curse, the ghosts are going to start wandering in a second. You know who? Da, da, da. All right, see you, Mihal. Good night. Look after yourself now. I wrote my French seminar thesis on Gaelic. Ooh, give me updated with all that kind of Gaelic stuff. Bum, bum, bum. The Gauls have a breed of horse generally related to. Oh, I need to look up that later on because I did not know that. The term used. Okay, guys. Thanks everybody who's joining in. No chit chat. Any questions there, especially on the upcoming book by Brian on the Kenil Owen and the Donegal kingdoms? Have you read the book yet? Have you gotten a hold of the book? Is the book out? Because I was looking over in the forecourts, and the book is already out there over in the forecourts. And I think Amazon doesn't have it out until the end of the month, I think. So we'll see. So if you're joining us anyway, definitely keep an eye on that one. And if you have any questions to do with the Kenil Owen, which branches into the likes of the MacLucklans and the O'Neills, definitely comment below. I want to have an old chit chat about them to even start with before moving on to other such topics for the next 2 hours or so I have you on for. I'll just move on to you. I'm just gonna keep Rex. I'm just gonna keep posting up your comments there at the side. Bum bum bum. Had Warbrands called. I see you know more about the old Celtic languages than I do. I'm terrible at the pronunciation of Celtic languages, which is funny because I went to an Irish Munster school when I was 7, but I am so bad at languages. I was actually, when I was 7 years of age, because I was practicing it every single day inside a school from early hours of the morning all the way up to around 4 or 5 o'clock or so. I was obviously quite good at it. And then when I was about 7 or 8, I moved over to a Catholic school where we started learning it from a book. And oh, my Munster Irish just went to hell so fast, you know. Just going over to Jim O'Neill's comment there. I thought the age of 25 was old in medieval times. Not in Ireland. I think this is always a for the rest of Europe, depending on where you are, I think the average goes out to around 25, but that's the average. So that means there's a lot of people obviously being killed by various stuff, depending on where you are in depending on where you are in Europe, because some places in Europe are absolutely hell on earth to live in. So of course the average would be around 25, especially if you're getting killed off young and stuff. And then even if you survived, you most likely would have gotten cancer and various other stuff that would have kicked off when you were 40 and that. So even if you're surviving, a very, very horrible life around the age of 20, you may have made it up to 40 and then, but not in Ireland. The average in Ireland could be up around 50. And that's even the lower classes. There were slaves and everything making it up to easily 80, 90 years of age. Um, a lot of people, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say life is completely perfect. A lot of people are getting cancer of the lungs because of the buildup of smoke inside of roundhouses and then later on tower houses and stuff. People are dying from various illnesses and stuff. Remember, soap isn't easy to access. A lot of women are dying of childbirth, but there's still in Ireland. You've got an amazing group of laws, the Brehon laws, very well educated people. You also, on top of that, eating in Ireland, food in Ireland is absolutely so healthy and amazing during the medieval period. Not so much now because of how so many rivers in Ireland have been poisoned. In the last since after World War II, a lot of rivers started getting poisoned. Now there's a lot of plastics in water in Ireland. So the life expectancy in Ireland is not nowhere near as amazing. But I think maybe it's got to balance it out because soap has gotten obviously better. They did have a form of soap in Ireland during the medieval period. You want to ask Rachel about that because I'm aware of it because of trade with Scandinavia, trade going into Scandinavia from the likes of Constantinople. The Eastern Roman Empire had brought in soap into the likes of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. And then that soap then made its way over to Dublin, and then from Dublin would have made its way over to Armagh, Clonmacnoise, and stuff. So we did have soap in Ireland at the time, which obviously made Irish men smell absolutely amazing at the time. So life was good in Ireland, but at the same time, I'm not saying like cancer didn't exist because of the smoke that's happening in roundhouses, and I'm not saying that people weren't dying of like a ton of different illnesses and stuff. Violence and warfare, you would assume, would be really bad in Ireland. It's actually not because of cattle raiding. The main focus is in cattle raiding, and the violence that would have been committed would have been banter, a bit of fun. So if somebody, it didn't always result in somebody being killed. And when somebody does get killed, people take it very, very seriously and it turns into a blood feud. So a lot of violence committed, from my understanding, to do with cattle raiding would have been banter. Somebody would have gotten an arrow into their shoulder, maybe an eye, stuff like that, that may have not always been fatal. And when it was fatal, it would have turned into a blood feud where the Brehon judges would have gotten involved. So it's not always like you see in the Icelandic sagas where it turns into a complete free for all between two families. Brehon judges would have gotten involved, and what was it? Oh my god, the key word is missing from my head. They would have paid a fine. I forget what the actual word is right now. But they would have paid their fines and stuff, so the blood feud would have calmed down. So in Ireland, people are, I would say the average could be 40 or something. And Brian Brew, people like Brian Brew and them all, they're all living up to 90 and stuff. Like Donegal Dunn that I was talking about this morning, he would have been born around 870. Yeah, definitely around 870 ish, if not, yeah, 870. And he lived all the way up to 944. That's so long, and you can see that with a lot of these Irish kings, they just live on for so long. As long as they can survive the first 10 years without getting butchered, and they go on for ages. Sometimes. By 200 BC, the Gaulish Latin culture, archaeology, changes, including riveted mail. I'm going to say riveted mail there. I'm not saying that dirty word. Ugh. Riveted mail. I haven't come across any evidence of the 10 mail being chained, just riveted. So I'm not saying that dirty word. I need to pull up my old thesis, though. You should, because that sounds insanely fascinating. If 25 was old, I'd be considered. Oh yeah, especially myself. Sure, I'm bloody. 36 now. I look 36 by my eyes and stuff, I reckon. But I've got some other people that are going, oh, you don't look 36 at all. And then I've got other people that are like, yeah, you started, you look like you're going into your 40s, Philip. uh, the Gelborg. The old Spear of Cucullum, isn't it? Bum, 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 bum. I'll put that one there just for the old, because that isn't that the old Spear of Cucullum? I've definitely lost with the comment section. Just popping back over to Jim O'Neill again. But if you borrow and don't return, isn't that the same as stealing? Depends your interpretation. You're an O'Neill. You know, you're best of buddies with the O'Donnells, and who else are you rivaling against? The MacLaughlins. And I have a map actually. God, lucky I put this in here. This is just for you, Jim O'Neill. Who's your neighbours? Oh, the Guinness family. I forgot the Guinness family is over on that side, isn't it? And let's see if we can probably get it on this better view. There we go. Just for you, Jim O'Neill. There's your neighbours that you're borrowing from, especially cattle. See, this thing's handy. I actually originally put this up so we could have a chat about late medieval period, probably later on and stuff. But it's handy for Jim O'Neill right now, anyway. Bam, bam. By the way, see those border lines there? Those lines are such a blur, by the way, because as we were saying last week with Dr. Owen O'Neill, is the fact that because they were the clans were kin groups and they were all married into each other, fostered each other's children, and also took hostages amongst each other. Those lines were really blurred, and what was it? The control of territory of land changed per season depending on where you were placing your cattle and stuff, and where kerns were patrolling. So those borders weren't entirely set. Like they definitely would have, and they don't become set until the Elizabethan time, when the English come in and they start putting in their county scheme, completely going against our version of it. Like I'd be honest with you, I actually prefer, because I love going out for walks and stuff. I prefer the old early medieval no border job. You know, being able to just go out and walk where you want, where you know bloody fences about. Like, you know, an island with no fences, isn't that living the dream, huh? I'm sure that's an old spear, Galborg. If I'm not mistaken, like, you know, comment section is going to tear me apart now in a second as I slowly make my way through the comment section. If you guys want to have an old chat with yourselves, make sure to jump in there and start chatting away, because I'll be slowly but surely going through the comments and stuff. If I knew we were going to talk about Iron Age Ireland and its connections with Rome and Gaul, I definitely would have put up more maps and stuff. I didn't realize we were going to switch down below, especially with the old Kenalone and stuff. Bum, bum, bum. Yep, the Romans used Gaelic horn saddles. Oh yeah, they did. Because the Romans took on, weirdly enough, you would assume it would be the Gaelic took on Roman style horses and stuff. No, it was the other way around. Because they had this is obviously before cavalry charges and stuff, but at the time, people of Celtic culture were riding up at the side of people with their latten type swords and slashing and cutting the head off. The style of warfare was a headhunting style, which could fit in with um, Iron Age Ireland and its cattle raiding and stuff, especially towards its headhunting culture. And because of this headhunting culture, it's that style of horse warfare that got super popular. And the Romans had to adjust their helmets and everything. You suddenly get cheek pieces. Cheek pieces are popping up everywhere. But of course, what's even more funny is that the Gallic helmets were superior than the Roman helmets because of the headhunting culture. They had to constantly adjust and change not just the swords, but also the helmets. Like at the very start of it, like especially in 300 BC, Gaelic were way more advanced than the Romans when it came down to infantry style warfare. Conventional military forces against conventional military forces. Like it's absolutely fascinating. Pop over to Elizabeth there. Hopefully, it's not one that you're naming and shaming. Hey, Jim, the average age going down because of high school mortality rates and rate. If you lived adulthood and survived birth, people easily live to their 50s and 60s. Yeah, I could easily imagine that as well. Like, bum bum bum, popping in to say hi. How you doing? For everyone that's popping in, what time is that? 45. Yeah. We should next 15 minutes or so. We should have a few more people popping in and saying hello and stuff. For everyone who's just joining us, we were just in the middle of having an old conversation. We're literally going between Iron Age, Ireland, and also talking about the Kenelone during the Viking Age. But we end up talking about Iron Age, Ireland for a wee bit, like for everyone that's into Ireland during the Iron Age and its connections to the Gaelic world. Definitely jump into the comment section there. Lads are talking about Gaelic and stuff. So if you have any questions, definitely ask Rex there. Because do you know what, Rex? You should jump on to this all together at some stage. Give me an old lecture about what was it called? The Gaelic languages and stuff. Because geez, I'd love to hear about that. Bum, bum, bum. By the way, anybody who wants to jump in and jump onto the show, especially on this day, but where earlier on, give me a text over on Instagram. I know only I'm pretty easy to contact over on Instagram. Instagram is the easiest one for messages and stuff for me, to be quite honest with you, which is at Irish Medieval History on Instagram. So definitely head on over there, like for if you're sending me a message and stuff. Bum bum bum. Was Cucullum's Deadly Spear from the twins. Just 1 second there, and I get an old drink. I got the bottle right here, so don't worry about me walking away. Wish me luck. I would have died from then. Oh no. Yeah, tooth infections were quite bad. I've come across that a few times, all right. And sometimes you read about like the main protagonist in one of those history books and stuff, and then suddenly they die of something to do with their teeth and stuff. Build up bacteria and stuff in their teeth, and they're dead. And they're like, what? Jesus. That and what was it? TB, the one where they're coughing out blood and stuff. Tuberculosis. Wow. That does not go away, does it? Like, and just when you think it's gone, suddenly you have a village coughing out blood, and you're like, you know, wild tuberculosis is. You don't realize how bad tuberculosis is until you've gotten into the chunk of a good historical book, and then you notice it just comes around again and again and again. Like tuberculosis, I think definitely is one of those things where I'm glad I live sort of in this era, because I think they're reckoning tuberculosis is evolving again, and it'll be the same trait again, where it never like completely wipes out a village, but it goes in there, and then you have certain people that you get really fond of suddenly coughing out blood. It's horrible. You know. Just jumping over to Rex's comment again. By 800 to 1200, do Irish use long ships similar to the Norse in Poland? We're building them, Rex. Most of the long ships that are found in Denmark and Norway, dated to around the 10th and 11th century, were built in Dublin. So we're building the long ships at that point, and also there is adjustments made, but a lot of the clans like the O'Malley's and stuff are all using more advanced forms of long ships, and we continue using the long ships until eventually we just switch over to those pirate ships going into the old Jacobite Williamite Wars. So going into the Jacobite and Williamite Wars, that's when we switch over to more of the style, those styles of what was it called, pirate ships. Because if you haven't noticed, we're a little bad country. So even today with the navy ships all specialize more in skirmishing than actual battle. Because if we were to get into anything like that, we'd get completely hammered. But the Irish government right now is trying to put more spending into building more of conventional force. So I don't know how we feel about that. Just to defend our territory from Russia right now, because Russia keeps threatening to attack our internet connection with America. That big cable from Ireland to, what was it? It's down in Kinsale, isn't it? That big cable from Kinsale to America. Russia keeps threatening to go in and cut it. So now we have to update our entire military to be able to somewhat defend ourselves from Russia, giving Britain and America enough time to go in and help us out. So, yeah, funny, funny, funny. Is funny. As it may be, I don't use soap. I use clay, which is fair enough, from the riverbanks and thin layer over my body and my hair and rinsed off. Yeah, but is that not a form of soap, though? Would clay not be considered a form of soap? The fact that you're getting off all the dead skin from your body and preventing it becoming really itchy. Because I normally brand all that as soap, to be honest with you. Or am I wrong in referring to that as soap? Cattle raids would have been proper. The fine was called sect, like Saxon mandate. Oh, nice. Did not know that. I just had a Wikipedia, or should that be in? That should be in what's his name, Fergus Kelly's early Irish Law, which I do actually have on me. Sure talks about that there. Bum, bum, bum. I just had Wikipedia this since I live across the pond. Since I live across the pond, not familiar with Irish names, languages. So now I've done a bit of clue topic. I don't know why I highlighted that. Bum, bum, bum. I use this map all the time. This map is handy. It is. It's handy for basic stuff, all right. Like, bum, 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 bum. It should. I think the one. Well, except for Mihal's lost. What was it? 2 years of research. I think Mihal could put together a way better map, to be quite honest with you. But it's grand for the basic stuff, you know. The problem is it doesn't have every single clan in there. Plus, it's got those borderlines in there, which kind of gives you like a fair idea who's dominant in that region. But the problem is that there was no borderlines at the time because of the fact that the clans were acting like king groups, as in, you know, they had marriage alliances, they were fostering their kids out, and they were also, what was it called, giving up hostages and stuff as well, or taking hostages, which caused all those lines to become a complete blur. So the owning of territory and land definitely changed per um, year and stuff. There were different kinds of wounds of Brehon law. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. I'm just gonna put that there right now. Oh, we can click for more. Let me see. I could probably get the proper one because it says more on this one. Can I find the original comment? No, you literally have more written on. Why do you have more? Right, let me hop back over to the old restream. Are those names similar to the Scottish clans? What do you mean by that one? Because that could get very, very complicated very quickly. And you literally just missed Mihal. And Mihal is the person that specializes in the difference between Scottish clans and Irish clans. He's away off to sleep. The MacDonalds were originally Scottish, if I remember. That's a funny one, like, because the McDonald's kind of like existed between Ireland and Scotland before modern nationalism, like it's safe to call them Gaelic clan rather than Scottish clan. Especially when they're like on and off fighting with Edinburgh. Like Edinburgh is the definition of what is Scotland at the time. Well, what is the Kingdom of Scotland? And McDonald's are just, especially a lot of these Gaelic clans are kind of just doing what they want and existing between Ireland and Scotland. So it's funny calling them Scottish. You're right, like in the fact that they originate in what is today Scotland. But that conversation's always so funny and strange. And it depends on your interpretation as well. Like, where am I? Where am I? McDonald's were originally Scottish, if I remember correctly, came over as Gallo Glass. Yeah, they did dominate the scene going into the Scottish War of Independence, going between Ireland and Scotland, fighting the Old English, especially in Carrickfergus, which we actually get here. If I can zoom in. Can I zoom in? Oh, no, it's gone. Right, so if you look at the very north of Ireland, you'll see a part there that is blue. And just above that, how's that popping up? Let me have a quick gawk at. Yeah, it's popping up fine actually. It's better actually on YouTube. If you look at the blue part there, the earldom of Ulster, and next to that is the MacDonalds. The MacDonalds are actually at war with The blue part is actually Carrickfergus, and they're constantly on and off again fighting with Carrickfergus. Every time the English manage to send in troops to recapture and occupy Carrickfergus again, and then the MacDonalds have to go. Well, the MacDonalds and the O'Neills have to go in there and force them back out again. So yeah, you're right. The MacDonalds originally came in there hired by the O'Neills as mercenaries, Galloglass mercenaries, to fight the men of Carrickfergus, especially early on again with the likes of the Bergs and stuff like. But then the Bergs end up having a civil war, so most of the time poor Carrickfergus is by itself trying to hold out against the MacDonalds and the O'Neills, and sometimes even the O'Donnells. And yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Is there any truth in that Samhain was only day where you were legal to raid cattle raid? No, 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 no. Well, cattle raiding is a funny one. Like it's a huge part of our culture is cattle raiding. So cattle raiding's more like banter than everything else. I steal your cattle, you steal my cattle, so on and so forth. Because what happens is during the months of, what was it, November to October, around this time, the cattle were way out in the middle of nowhere, pasturing the fields. Because during the winter, you keep the cattle close to the tower house or ring fort to protect them and keep them warm from the coldness and stuff. And then during the summer months, you let your cattle go out and you send the young warband out, the Ugluks, the young cattle raiders out with them to protect the cattle from other cattle raiders. But those young fellas as well, it's a game because those young fellas will go out and steal cattle as well. So it's a back and forth game, and it's meant to be there to train young boys to become men and stuff. So what happens is that the young boys and young girls as well, these young girls that go out with them, and the young girls build these little houses and stuff for them to stay in and stuff, and they'll end up drinking and partying and having a great time. And then during the day, the young girls will look after all the administration around the cows and stuff because they have little houses and huts and stuff that they build. They're only like summer homes. And the boys will go out and either protect the cattle and the girls because sometimes they even rob each other's girls. And so the young boys, some of them will stay behind at the little makeshift roundhouse hut that they have built, and other fellows will go out and they'll try to rob each other's cattle. And as I said there, sometimes they'll even try to rob girls, So it's wild, but brilliant. But yeah, that's it. There's no people aren't sending out fines. It only turns into people fining each other and doing punishments like that if a blood feud happens. So what happens is that I go out and rob your cattle, and if I kill one of your sons or something like that, or one of my sons go out and kill your or something on those lines, then it'll turn into a blood feud until the Brehon law comes over, the judge comes over, and then there'll be compensation and fines. That's what's happening there. Thank you. Bum 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 bum. Then you have blows, come to bed. You see, these things are handy. It actually covers what I'm talking about. It's all like going back and forth, like it's all fitting in perfectly well. They weren't using them anyway, so we had to borrow them. Back to cattle raiding with Jim O'Neill. Yeah, you see, that's exactly it. See, it fits into exactly what I was saying. They weren't stealing cattle; they were just borrowing cattle. Just because you had more cattle at the end of cattle raiding season, which was around this time of October, going into the winter, and then you bring it back to your own ring fort or tower house, just borrowing it for the winter. Everyone's just borrowing each other's cattle for the end of the winter, the end of the summer. Like, I'm just gonna keep posting up Peter's stuff because a lot of the stuff he's saying is actually brilliant. Peter, I'm assuming. Oh yeah, you could literally give the source in the next one. There you go. Assassinate an attempted murder in Brehon law. Niall MacLeod in 1998. I've come across Niall MacLeod's work before. I need to look into him. Shane says the Romans did adopt. You're talking about that too. That is close to modern day Dublin, I think. I'm sure you are. Oh, you're talking about the. Oh, let me look into that one. Rex says yes. The ships. Google. I'm literally just gonna click there. See, it's handy having this restream. It'd be handier if TikTok and bloody Instagram played ball and Facebook, so I could literally just restream onto them. Twitch. Do you know what? I should have went over to Twitch and post this over on Twitch as well. If I knew this morning Instagram was going to act up, I probably would have just brought this over to Twitch as well. But it is what it is. Is an earldom the same as a kingdom? Yeah. Well, you see, this is where it's funny because, Jim, we are forcing Irish into English. So if you're doing a straight translation from to a, so the straight translation was to the a. So if you're directly translating that over, or province, yeah, I'm going to say yeah for that one, because like this direct translation like Tuda or province or any of those direct translations from Irish, which the words are completely all in my head right now except for Tuda. There is a word for province and it's not clicking into my brain right now. And there's another one as well, which is a confederation. So you would have had confederation and provinces, and a direct translation of them straight over would be the equivalent of an earldom. But we've directly translated them over to be kingdom. And this is also what causes arguments as well between translations. Because who was I saying it to? I was saying it to somebody yesterday or this week or something, that this is why Rachel from Creative Contessa doesn't like direct translations. She prefers to translate it herself, which then means you'd have to learn Old Irish. Well, you'd have to learn Irish anyway, which, we all should be doing. Shane, Calraden occupied a whole year. It's funny because you have the main cattle raiding happening because they would have gone out to pasture way out in the countryside and stuff. So when I say cattle raiding, this is me now. When I say cattle raiding season, I'm talking about the main cattle raiding that happens from November to October. And the reason why I said cattle raiding season is because I'm very much involved with the living history. So to me, it feels more seasonal. And I had just finished with the military because I was involved with the likes of Kenya and stuff, where you would have had the fighting seasons when you would have had groups of militias and stuff coming out to shoot at us and stuff. The main bulk of that would have happened during the summer months and stuff. So that was always called, and still is today, called fighting season. So when I switched over to the living history, where I was doing a lot of living history because I'm addicted to it, and if I go back to Ireland, I'd easily I already have my kids squared away. I'd easily jump back in again. I refer to the main months of November to October as cattle raiding season. But you're right. Like even when October is finished and we go in after Samhain, when the cattle are back next to the ring forts and the tower houses and stuff, they're still from other inside of the fortifications or tower houses. They're still sending kerns out to cattle raiding. So it's not like it's done. Every once in a while they'll organize within. No, it has to be even more organized. It can't be as haphazard as it is during the summer months. But during the winter months, it has to be more organized because you're literally raiding into a fortified area where the cattle itself may be fortified as well. So, but Dr. Owen O'Neill has found plenty of evidence to highlight the fact that they are organizing cattle raids into fortified areas or an area where there's fortification around during the winter months. So that is, you're bang on right, that is happening. But the style of raiding is different again compared to the haphazardness that's happening during the summer months, in my understanding. Like, by the way, over to Peter. Thanks very much for taking the bulk of that, and everyone else who's in the comment section answering questions that I should be answering. Well, I'm only here for an old conversation anyway, for another hour or so, and then I'll feck off and do something else. What am I supposed to do today? We're putting together a presentation next week for cattle raiding, so we're literally going to be talking about this even more next week. and with Dr. Owen O'Neill and Mihal. So we're jumping on for that one next week. And I need to do, because I'm also over on Patreon as well, with some of you guys in the comment section. I am covering, was it surnames? You guys keep annoying me as well. And I bet you half of you guys won't even be in that class. You're constantly in the comment section. Talk about surnames. Talk about surnames. How many? I wonder how many people are going to be in class for Sunday night. I'm going to be covering surnames over on Patreon, which is only 20 quid a month. So it's not even that bad. And you get a whole load of other classes and all my previous recordings as well. But the class that you guys keep asking for like a million times, I'm going to be covering that topic. Was it this Sunday over on Patreon, which is the families that were a part of the Norman invasion of Ireland are either fighting against the Normans or were part of the Norman world, because it wasn't just Normans that came over. We had Frisians, people from Brittany, obviously people from England, and various other Wales, obviously. So I'll be covering all those families this Sunday. So I need to do up all my research into that. I've started somewhat the skeleton of it, but I've been busy this week, so I still have to chuck in even more stuff in there as well. Bam, bam, bam. Well, it's my Earldom was ruled by an earl, roughly a county. A kingdom was generally multiple earldoms. But would they not then? The thing is about that though is that they would have an over king on top of that one. You see, this is the problem, Peter, I have with it, especially when I'm looking at the likes of Fergus Kelly's Early Irish Law and various other books, is that it's, and somebody else said it. I don't know if you were looking at my shorts and stuff, and I was talking about to it ad stuff and all that stuff. How I don't like the word. I know it's when you say to it, the direct translation is tribe, but I don't like it because when you say tribe in English, people think of Bronze Age tribe, and that's not what we're saying. We're really trying to say king groups. So that's why, like direct translation, it's like we're forcing, a square into a circle half the time, going from Irish into English. So yeah, it's funny. Thank you for answering that, Peter. Yeah, Peter, thanks for all the comments and feedback and stuff as well. It means an absolute ton. I mostly use it for teaching. Really detailed one with a lot of overlapping colors is too much for most Patreons I talk to. No, you're right. It's amazing. Your skin still. Okay, we're going a bit greasy. On the topic of clay, I use one. I must be so behind in the comments. It's absolutely wild. My grandmother's land. Was that over in America or in Ireland? Bam, 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 bam. Well, that's why a ton of women got. I might just, because some of these are just common conversations, so I might just slightly drop down. If hopefully it's not, I don't skip anything too important. The names show most of the permanent. Some of these are really, really good comments. Let me actually scan. Oh no, it's grand. It's not too many. Two of the clans region. There's a sub branch. Bum, 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 bum. Totally off topic. My professor was 1996. That seems pretty awesome. Wish I was a part of that one. This was in Nigeria. Nigeria still does cattle raiding. Is it Nigeria? I'm sure it's Nigeria or Kenya, one or the other. I'm confident it's Nigeria still does cattle raiding, because I was it 2017? I was doing research into what cattle raiding would look like. The problem is cattle raiding is very similar to our form of cattle raiding, especially in the 60s and 70s. But the problem is then they insert guns into it, and it no longer becomes a thing of battle. It's just blood feud after blood feud after blood feud. And it's not just Africa that has this problem. Papua New Guinea, the moment you have a cattle raiding society, which is very peaceful, by the way, the moment you introduce guns, it's just even the structure of the society collapses. That's how bad guns are for society. It's just horrendous, you know. Now, obviously, I can't evolve too much into that one because I'll make certain people angry. But guns and cattle raiding don't mix. Yeah, there's some amazing people out there that do a wee bit of cattle raiding. All right. I need to pop over because there were people. I got this book advertised over to me. I'm not. I didn't get paid, but I am getting squared away by the lads over in Minute. Plus, a certain person in the comment section right now is also gifting me this book as well, which is a part of the same group of people, by the way. So not only is my buddy there in the comment section who's also gifting me on Patreon. Sending me over this book, but the actual clique itself was in contact with me this week on Minute. So they were looking for me to talk about their book, and then they're going to, they've already done it, they're advertising my stuff as well, Irish medieval history, and my Instagram and all that kind of stuff as well. So, scratch my back, I scratch theirs. I'm not getting paid any money though, but they're advertising my stuff, and in return, I'm advertising their stuff back. And also, a certain person who's in the comment section right now is getting me this book, the Kildare's White Rose. Thank you so much, by the way, and that's really good timing. Especially since now I'm actually talking to them, I can actually know somewhat of what I'm talking about. But this is the other book that they're really, 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 really pushing right now, which is Ireland's Uncrowned Kings. They're mostly looking at the Kildare Fitzgeralds. You're so jealous of that one, yeah, you should be. But this is the one that they're pushing for right now. 1 second, I'll just pop back in. Good night, y'all. I hope y'all had a good night. Thank you, and thanks so much for popping in there as well. It means an absolute ton for me. It means I'm not talking to myself for the next hour or so. So thanks, guys, for all the comments and the old chat and stuff. It means an absolute ton for me. So yeah, I decided we'd have an old talk. We were talking about just there early medieval period and Iron Age, but we'll switch over for the next hour or so and talk about the late medieval period, especially in the Tudor, because I'm thinking this one's mostly covering, it is the rebellion, power and intrigue and rebellion. Yeah. So it's mostly around the Silk and Thomas rebellion. From why I haven't got a hold of this book yet, by the way. I'm still over in Japan, so it's taken everything forever to get over to me and stuff. But regardless, I haven't read this book yet, but it's meant to be insanely good. Aren't I so good at advertising? I haven't read the book yet, but yeah, it's amazing, boys and girls. Go buy the book. But yeah, if you're into late medieval Ireland, especially the majority of you, because half of you guys can't shut up about the William Knight and Jacobite Wars. So of course, you'll be into the clan history with the clan wars and stuff, especially since what's the two biggest series right now on Netflix? Oh yeah, Outlanders and the Guinness House Guinness is on Netflix now. So you're all talking about clans again, especially Clan MacGuinness and what's the other clan in Outlanders? Oh my god. Literally, that Scottish clan's gone completely on my head. But regardless, you're all talking about clans right now. So, of course, you'll be looking up Clan Fitzgerald, depending if you want to define it as Clan Fitzgerald. I consider it Clan Fitzgerald because I'm from Mallow. Mallow Bay, which is dominated by the Fitzgeralds. So I would view the Fitzgeralds a clan from a European perspective. But Mihal and Dr. Owen O'Neill view it from a Gaelic perspective. And from a Gaelic perspective, the Fitzgeralds are not a clan. So there's one for you. But from a European and an Irish American perspective, there's a lot of Irish Americans actually view the Fitzgeralds as Irish American historians and academics viewed the Fitzgeralds as a clan as well because of the interpretation they get from the William Knight and Jacobite Wars, which is, the time period of Outlanders and stuff around the 17th century. So around the 17th century, they would take on more of that kind of clan interpretation of the Fitzgeralds. But anyway, even if you view the Fitzgeralds as a house or, an Anglo-Irish house or a clan, if you're into late medieval Ireland, this is definitely the book to get. This one and the one I got gifted. So thank you so much for that. You know who you are right now. If I can find our immigration papers, you'll get a kick out of them. I'll read them to you. Yeah, yeah, read away. I spent hours harassing the people of Minute Castle last year. Why were you harassing the people of Minute Castle? Would you believe I actually haven't gone up to Minute Castle? You're going to kill me, you are. But I haven't been up to Minute Castle. Would you believe it? You think me, of all people, especially since, like, even when I was living in Ireland, I was doing a ton of work for Minute Castle, advertising and all that stuff. And I was working side by side with the tour guides of Newcastle when I was working down in Cove and also in Kilmallock with Trevor McCarthy. I was working with the staff and stuff from Newcastle, and I never went up to Newcastle. I just assumed I'd end up getting paid to go to Minute. So I was like, well, I'm going to get paid anyway, so I might as well not pay to go up. But now I'm kicking myself. I didn't pay to go up to Minute Castle because I was doing the tourism and also the living history. So I was like, well, it's an inevitability at some stage I'd end up in Minute Castle. Didn't do anything. And it's even weirder now because Minute Castle is doing not just Minute Castle, but just Minute University, and all of them as a whole are doing so much with medieval history. Although I think for the last 2 years they've been really focused on Saint Bridget. Bum, bum, bum. Everybody jumping in now. Vanilla chat, how are y'all keeping? We're just talking about the late medieval period, especially to do with the Fitzgeralds and stuff. Do you view the Fitzgeralds as a clan or an Anglo-Irish house? Hmm? Which way do you view them? Sick of people are bad for guns. Yeah, I would definitely say don't. If you're a bit touched in the head, I would definitely say do not purchase a gun. Funny enough, I actually am pro gun. My whole family is actually pro gun. We have a rifle in our house, but my dad's a saint of mind, and he served in the Irish Defence Force for years and years and years and years. My whole family's been in the military, and it was actually super easy for my dad. Normally, other people, it's really difficult to get a firearms, but it was actually insanely easy for my dad to get a rifle. All of his rifles and stuff he originally got from granddad, and when they were passing down and stuff, it was so easy for my dad to pass through. But my whole family, we've never had any problems with firearms or anything in my family and stuff, and we've always gone between kind of the farming and the military side of things. I don't have any farmers per se in my family, but we live out in the farming lands and stuff on my mother's side to do with the Ryans and that, and so we've always had those kind of connections and stuff to a healthy gun society and stuff. So it was really easy for us to actually get a firearm. As in, we literally just filled out a whole load of paperwork up in the police station, and then the police contacted me to literally say, "Is your dad saint of mind?" And I said yes. He's got like 20 years, if not more, serving in the military. So no problems there. So I'm, from my perspective, of course, pro guns. From an Irish perspective, I don't know about the rest of you. Maybe the rest of you shouldn't have a gun. um, bum, 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 bum. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But sometimes, yeah. But were they answering the how good is Manu at answering questions? Because I've never um how we say quiz them. Because I know trim can be hit or miss. Sometimes you've got a tour guide who is absolutely just next level phenomenon. My friend who works up in Trim Castle, he's been there since Braveheart, as a kid, by the way, just like myself. And so he did, as a kid, did Brave, because Braveheart was filmed up in Trim Castle. So he's been up in Trim Castle since he was a child. I wouldn't say working per se, but you know what I mean, like pretty much doing and helping out with his parents and stuff from a young age, all the way up to um, when he was an adult, and he ended up taking a loan. I shouldn't even, actually, I won't even say half the stuff here because I'll get into trouble. But anyway, he's been working up there forever, and he is absolutely amazing. So good to work with. But then this person didn't realize I was a tour, what was it? a tour guide myself, and I was qualified. At this point, I was like peak. I literally had finished my thesis. Literally finished my thesis. I was with my wife, Yuki, and we were up in Trim Castle, and we had this tour guide, and oh my god, she was just making stuff up. She was absolutely terrible. I'm not obviously I won't name names, but she was no good. She wasn't good at all, and she was just kind of making stuff up. And even the tourists that were with her were starting to somewhat make fun of her because she was going way off there with the make believe stuff. Didn't report her because I didn't want to be a jerk like that, but at the same time, not good in my opinion. Are you talking about Kildare or Desmond? But if you're talking about who what was it called, where I live, and what heavily impacts me, I suppose my whole family would have been under for a very long time. Between them and the O'Briens is the Desmond Fitzgeralds. If you're talking about that one, bum bum bum. Because Kildare is definitely an Anglo-Irish. Ooh, so yeah. See, this one's funny because I would definitely, I would agree with you there. The Kildare Fitzgeralds, or yeah, the Kildare Fitzgeralds I definitely would consider a what was it called? The definition of what is a Anglo-Irish house. So I definitely would view them as an Anglo-Irish house. I would agree with you there from my perspective, my unqualified perspective, because I don't specialize in houses and clans. But when it comes down to the Desmond Fitzgeralds, they're funny, aren't they? They're very even the fact like they come straight off the boat and go flying over to Kerry, like, and they're Cambro Normans. Like you see, like we've been over on Patreon talking about this stuff, and the Fitzgeralds from the get-go are just so not English from my perspective. Like, and you can even get a good idea of that from our favorite book. Where is it? Boom, 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 boom. Where's she gone? The one on the Fitzgeralds. They'll come back to me. And they definitely paint the picture that the Fitzgeralds are definitely not English, like, you know, because they even at the time, historians like I know historians now are referring to them as English, especially your Manor, who wrote that book for the University of Liverpool, the one on the English invasion of Ireland, 1169. That book that came out this year, and he paints it as a very English invasion. From what I've heard, I haven't read that one either. I should do, but especially with the what's allegedly out there about the book. But anyway, he sees it as very English Fitzgerald's, but from my understanding, they're very kind of Knights of the Welsh Marches, because in the literature they're referred to as Knights of the Welsh Marches. They're never referred to as Anglo Knights or anything like that. And in a lot of historians, refer to them as the Cambro Normans as well, like, you know. So yeah, the Desmond Fitzgeralds are a funny one because at least with the Kildare Fitzgeralds, they're very English. Well, they're between the two worlds, like constantly, like. Most guns violence is it's funny, Brian. I think it depends where you live. Even in America, because America's so big. I think it depends where you live. Do you know? Because of course, if you're in certain places, you know, I think it's a bit more than just self. But anyway, I don't want to talk about gun violence. Because I like guns, but I'm also not silly. I know there's even in America, because America's so big, it depends where you are. It's like, let's be honest, like some people should not have guns. You know, it is what it is. But at the same time, I'm not going to turn around and say take my dad's gun off him. You know, in Ireland of all places, especially my dad, don't take his gun away. He needs his gun. The British barred Catholics from owning guns until yeah, but that gets very funny, doesn't it? It gets very funny, very violent, funny like. And there's a ton of ends up a load of our nobles then continued immigrating over. I have a short right now on my Instagram from one of my friends back home in Ireland from the living history side of things, and she has one talking about more immigration that happened during the Williamite and Jacobite Wars because of those gun laws that came out. And I think it's O'Leary, who I'm actually my best friend is related to him. He's one of the straight ancestors, so I'm actually best friends with one of the main O'Leary branches, and he is what was it called? And it's one second while I'm actually talking about the O'Leary clan. Their gathering happened actually, and it was one of the living history groups I'm good friends with. Was one of the organizers for the O'Leary gathering. It was one of the O'Sullivan reenactors. And or am I waffling? Oh yeah, it was one of the O'Learys. I think it was just after the Williamite and Jacobite Wars, I think, the main bulk of it. And he came back to Ireland. I think he was originally in around Spain or France, I'm sure. And he came back and he was killed for carrying a gun. He refused to give it. I think his horse and his gun, I think he was supposed to give to a British landlord, and he refused to do so. So the British landlord killed him. He was head of the O'Learys at the time, I'm sure. I'm going to avoid the gun conversation because we'll all get into trouble. It's granting to even have the conversation, but we'll end up getting into trouble because the powers will be will come in. I'm surprised the powers will be didn't come in earlier on and start giving out to me. For some reason, I've been playing with fire a lot lately, especially with the politics that's been going on, and I've been expecting that the powers would be to come in and just start kicking my teeth in, but maybe they haven't because of all the other mad stuff I've been up to. I don't know. I get away with a lot of stuff. I don't know why. I'm going to go. See you when I see you, lads. Everyone who's popping away, I'll be on for another half an hour or so. But anyone who's going off to Laba, to bed now, good night. Be safe. Or going off for their dinner if you're over in the States right now. Where is I? Oh, they were great, my dude. I was getting sent more research for months. They have a list of 60 books they can reference if they don't know. That is absolutely amazing. But Minute is just, I don't know, right now, I think for the last 4 years have been just dominating. This is what annoys me even more, the fact I didn't go up to Minute Castle, because of the fact that for the last 4 years, they've really started to dominate the whole medieval Irish. Like, they have the podcast and everything going now, like, so they're just making bits of everything. And I think Minute University is just getting hit after hit after hit out right now, like when it comes down to the medieval research and stuff. And also on top of that, like University College of Cork that I went to, the reason why we're doing grand right now is because of our connections with Gone Medieval. Gone Medieval is quite good, especially the work that the likes of Diarmuid Scully, who was actually my lecturer when I was in University College of Cork. The work he has done with Gone Medieval is absolutely amazing, especially the work to do with Gerald of Wales. And he's got podcasts, and he's got an episode on what was the other one they do? Because they have a live stream service as well. Give us 1 second. I'll look up their live stream service because it's really important. Gone Medieval History Hit. That's the one. And they have this series to do with Castle, because I have a lot of friends who's on that one. Castle. Is it on YouTube now? No, it's not. 1 second. Castles That Made Ireland. I managed to watch the first episode of that, and I have to update my subscription because my wife gave out to me. My wife was like, and she was bang on right, I should have waited for all of it to be out and then watched it. But because I was so excited at the time because everybody was talking about it, I went to pay for the subscription and then I forgot about it. And now I have to update it again. But I won't be doing it for this month or next month or so. I'll wait a while bit to update that subscription because I'm busy this month and next month ish. Well, I'm really busy. I'm super busy this month. Yeah. So Castles That Made Ireland. Diarmuid Scully had done a ton of work on that one, and so did Dave Swift, who I also worked with in the past. I worked with Dave Swift in the reenactments and stuff. He hired me for a few gigs and stuff up in the Dublin Museum. I was working up in Dublin Museum with Dave Swift for a while. I was doing early medieval 10th century Ireland up in Dublin Museum, talking about the weapons, warfare, and also I was covering coins as well. I was doing talks and stuff on coins up in Dublin Museum, which was amazing. I'm gonna go and definitely pro firearms in the hands of a person who knows. Well, that's it. But we'll skip through that one because we'll get into trouble if we keep that up. Why does my telesale kill there, buddy? Kildare, we're talking about the book for the late medieval period. So we're talking about the Kildare Fitzgeralds. Well, we're talking about late medieval period, especially to do with House Kildare Fitzgerald, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Or Fitzgerald Kildare? Kildare Fitzgeralds? Yeah, Kildare Fitzgerald sounds better. Did they not take weapons with them on cattle raids? Well, I hope so, since they probably would get into a skirmish to rob some cattle. So yeah, they would take weapons, all right. But you're thinking about the bans that happened during the William Knight and Jacobite Wars. William Knight and Jacobite Wars happens around the 1700s when the English take over. The English haven't taken over Ireland yet. Like what? This is late medieval period, and it's only the part that's in black there that's under English control. And even on top of that, it's not actually under English control per se. You could easily make an argument, especially during the period of the Wars of the Roses, that it's under the control of the Fitzgeralds. And even before that, during the Hundred Years' War, Art MacMore Cavanagh is taking the tribute. Like, how could you say Ireland is subjugated when Art MacMore Cavanagh is taking tribute from the English coffer in Dublin? Do you know? So it is definitely not under English control, that's for sure, during the medieval period. So you may be thinking more onto the idea of mixing up the William Knight and Jacobite Wars, which happens during the 18th century, 18th, 19th century. You keep up post my bedtime. Oh, well, if you're off to sleep anyway, good night, sleep tight, and make sure the bed book's tight. And some of y'all off to sleep as well. Like, it's long before. I'll stay. I'll keep you awake for some of you up for another half an hour, and then I'll let you all sleep. You're all mad for sleep. Anyone going for dinner? Because I know some of the Irish Americans will be going for their din soon. Their dinner. Scotland used to be open carry. Yeah, they did. Like, Scotland had some brilliant laws for ages. Like, open carry. Not sure when it ended, but but they must have brought, especially the Irish Americans and stuff. I don't think it was so much, maybe not so much the Italian Americans. I don't know. It's funny because it was the Dutch colonists and the English colonists that were first rocking up with their guns and stuff when they first arrived. But were you allowed? This is why I'm interested in. Were you allowed to have guns inside of New York at the start? I have to look at. Do you know what? That's a question for was it AI Google? Could you, one second, could you have guns in New York on you in New York in the 19th and 20th century? Not illegal open carry. Some weapons during the 19th century, early 20th century became increasingly difficult to have a gun on you in person in New York, especially concluded this probably due to the growing shift towards more resentment of firearm laws. I'm just quickly scanning through this because there's a lot here, like, because it's complicated. Because New Yorkers didn't like people walking around with open carry, from my understanding of what this is saying here. I don't think it's officially banned from New York until 1911, but that's kind of always subject. 1910, okay, Roger. So it was frowned upon. So in New York, it was frowned upon to be walking around with a firearm, but it wasn't banned until 1911. So in the because the reason why I bring that up is because I'm more or less talking about the period of the William Knight and Jacobite Wars, and one of the main colonies was New York, because New York was one of the major settlements that people were going in and out of. And I was just curious if people would have walked around with firearms around New York, but according to this, it was frowned upon to be just walking around with firearms, which makes sense because it was always kind of frowned upon to be walking around with firearms in a major settlement. Like, even in the period of Rome, it was frowned upon to be walking around a major settlement with a sword on you. Like, I know it's still a manly thing to have it around the hip and stuff, but like walking around with a spear or anything like that, it's just like, it puts the merchants off for sure. Like, the merchants definitely wouldn't be a huge fan of big, strong, thuggish lads walking around the place with bloody swords and all kind of stuff. And I suppose even like rifles and stuff, would have been funny walking around with in New York. So it makes sense for it to be frowned upon in New York to just be walking around nilly willy with a rifle. Scotland, where am I? No, Scotch. When did you say the Scottish? 1 second. AI, come back. When did they? Oh shit! 1 second. When did they get rid of open carry guns in Scotland? Question mark, question mark. No way. 1920. 1997. Would you believe? I cannot. And it's not until there was a massacre. There was a shooting that turned into a massacre where 16 children were killed. And then in 1997, they finally got rid of open carry in Scotland. I'm funny. Just the reason why I find it funny, just because of the way Britain behaves. And what's the story of Ireland? If that's the case, 1997, and that's after the war. Well, the war's coming to an end in Ireland. So that's so funny. But I suppose it makes sense at the same time, just because the war was going on between Ireland and Scotland with police and all that kind of stuff. That's funny. But then you think they would have been more stricter given the fighting that was going on between the two sides, between Ireland and Scotland, which makes sense then what America was so pro giving Irish people guns if Scotland was pro to giving, certain people guns. That makes sense. Okay. Anyway, my brain is waffling about the troubles and stuff, and I don't want to be talking about that because we could get into trouble. Actually, I'll just copy and paste 1 second. When did Ireland get rid of open and carry? I bet you this is really early on because of what was happening in the north. Or maybe it was the 1800s. 1970. Yeah. 1970. Yeah, straight away. So the Troubles. The Troubles kicks off. The War in Northern Ireland kicks off, and no Irish people are allowed to have open carry. Why am I not shocked? There, we learn something new every day. So the reason why Irish people today don't walk around in open carry is because of the Troubles. There you go. Is that the same in Northern Ireland, I wonder? I guarantee it probably is the same in Northern Ireland. Yeah, same dates. Yeah, except for their one is 1973, where Northern Ireland is bang on. What was it called? 1970. So bang on 1970. Open carry is completely gone in the Republic, and then in Northern Ireland it's gone in 1973, and it's literally the exact same laws and copied into Northern Ireland, and it's a reflection of the fighting that was happening in Northern Ireland. That's funny. Please pardon delays when I type. Oh yeah, that's grand. Sure, I'm still talking away to myself here. Looking up some funny stuff. Peter's still adding in some amazing work there. Dun, dun, dun. Also back, the Earl topic closest equivalent to Irish would be See, those funny, the Over Kings and stuff. I fully agree with you, actually. The Re-Roic and all that stuff is the closest equivalent to like a king or an earl and all that kind of stuff. There's another one, like Taoiseach, for example, sometimes would go into our understanding of what is an earl, because you see a lot of earls when we go into, because the word earl doesn't really get used until going into the late medieval period. And then when you see a lot of Taoiseachs, which the direct translation means, and Taoiseach itself doesn't really pop up until the late medieval period. And on top of that as well, when Taoiseachs get Anglo nobilities and stuff, they're then referred to as Jarl. And what's funny is, sorry, Earl, But what's funny is that in the early medieval period, when you have the Eamirs, who were Jarls, which is the equivalent of Earls, coming into Ireland, they're given the title King. So they're not referred to as Jarl in the the Norse sagas. They're referred to as King, and that can get really, really funny because I think the Norse are confused about that word "re," which direct translation means king, because sometimes in the Scandinavian sagas they can use that "re" word or "I" and start just applying it to any king of Ireland. So I think they're also getting bogged down with that term "re king" as well. So anytime they say "re," like "re Rourke" or whatever, or even just "king of a Tuat," I think they're just assuming, oh, well, that person is the king of Ireland, and it's not. Sometimes they're really just the equivalent of a jarl, an earl of the early medieval period, from my interpretation. Like for example, the Re Dublin, the king of Dublin. I he is, from my opinion, he's literally the equivalent of a jarl, you know. And sometimes he even goes under the likes of one of the best examples, in my opinion, the likes of Donegal Dunn and stuff. Because when Donegal Dunn goes in and sacks Dublin, I do believe that's Donegal Dunn subjugating the men of Dublin under him, the Eamers, the likes of Citric, Eamer, and all them boys. But I could waffle all day about that one. Bum, bum, bum. I finished dinner. What you have for dinner? Bum, bum, bum. Speaking of coins, what was where am I? What was Aragot before we saw Roman? Norse silver, wasn't it common for Celtic? Um, the it's believed, I have a book there actually somewhere. I can't remember its name. It's somewhere around here. I have to, if I find it in this bloody heap, because my wife is over in Tokyo, so the house has become a mess of junk food and books. So there's books and junk food everywhere right now. But because I've been reading books and just lying on the floor, just buying junk, and then like I was drinking this last night. One second, I was drinking chocolate milk last night, just like this, with the cup, been pouring it, sipping away, and just reading my book. I was doing that for a full night. I ended up spending. I started off with the Italian Wars last night, banking during the Italian Wars, because I'm addicted to reading about banking during the Italian Wars. And then, as you guys know, banking in Italian Wars eventually ends up with the Bank of Italy in America. And then the Bank of Italy in America, it turns into the Bank of America. And right now, the Bank of America is dominated by an Irish American. So I was reading through it last night, and I was and there's a lot of reading there, and I ended up just having junk food all over the place, literally and it's mostly coffee, not stuff. So it's quite bad. I need to some stage, probably not today, because the wife isn't going to be home today, and I still have plenty more work to do after this. But yeah, it's wild, all right. But why did I even waffle about this? I was meant to be waffling about what you were saying about coins. But yeah, the book is somewhere around here. It's over there. No, it's not. Okay. But anyway, yeah, the Irish used cattle for currency. That's why cattle raiding was so important for the Irish, because until the cities are built up, the monastic settlements, you would have gone in there and you would have had cattle markets. So during particular periods of time, so most of the time they're living within the Tuat area. So they would have had, you as an individual would have had a ring fort, right? Which is, you and your family would have lived in your little simple ring fort, and your neighbor would have also lived in a ring fort, and this would have been 10 to 30 ring forts which would have been close together, which would make up a Tuat. And then another multiple of those Tuat make up a Tuat A. And then on top of that, you would have had a king that would have ruled these multiple Tuat A, right? And then you all would have had cattle and stuff. And then during the winter months, the cattle would live next to your Tuat, and you would have gathered up your Tuat, and you would have gone over to, what was it, cattle markets, which would have been the very festival, the various festivals and stuff. And there you would have paid compensation depending if you did anything wrong. You would have also traded. So at some stage, the cattle would have been chopped up, and then that meat would have been traded for various bits and bobs that you needed. So you, as a society, with the judges and various other people, and the Rhea kings, would have dished out as a society. And this is why Ireland as a whole, like even this map, you see these lines here, like in reality, those lines would not exist. People were broken into king groups, which were, and this is why, like, it further, like the O'Neills and the O'Donnells, that was not, this is O'Neill's side and this is O'Donnell's side. That's non existent because of the fact that within them is multiple king groups. And then those king groups were broken into fosterage, hostage, and marriage alliances. And so all the clans, like you're talking about this from a late medieval period, all the clans are mixed together. So they're more like king groups than anything else. And on top of that, then each one of these king groups, clans, would have had a set of cattle, and then they would have gone out to the marketplace, and then they would have traded their various, as a society and as a whole, not as a singular, but as a whole society, would have traded what they needed to trade and got the bits and bobs that they needed as a society. Very, very, very complicated society, and it was all glued together in Brehon law. Fergus Kelly's Brehon Law is an absolute magnificent book and definitely one to get, which goes into further detail about this kind of stuff. But Ireland was a cattle economy until you have cities. Now, then it breaks into okay, so now this map, it's not amazing for cities, but then it breaks into it's a system that Citric Sulkenbraid brings in, and then that system just dominates the whole medieval world until the coming of the English. But basically, when you went into city areas, then you traded coins. So your cattle, there was a certain set of cattle that you had that was equal to a coin, and also slaves were also used as currency as well. So slaves would have been traded in for coins and stuff as well within the currency, because you could trade women overseas. You couldn't trade cattle overseas. You see, this is the thing as well, is that this is why Ireland was internal instead of external until the coming of the Viking. And this is why the Hiberno Scandinavians end up dominating the Gaul Gael, dominate external politics, where the Irish dominated internal politics, the Gaelic dominated internal politics, the likes of the Hiberno Scandinavians, and then later on, the Anglo Irish dominate external politics. So the Gaelic were very internal politics, but the Hiberno Scandinavians, and then later the Anglo Irish were very external politics to a certain degree. Various people who claim to be not re-Gael, but re-Éireann. So anyone who refers to themselves as re-Éireann are people who are very much involved with the external politics in the city areas and stuff. So it is very much, it's very much kind of clicked together as two worlds. You had the city world and the kind of country world that was dominated by the native Gaelic people. It's amazing, but there's a lot to it, you know. So the coins and stuff, when the Vikings come in, the Vikings build cities, right? This is our understanding right now. And there may have been early forms of, because we do have monastic settlements, which are kind of like the early form of cities at the time. But we may have port versions of that we're not aware of quite yet, which were built by the Gaelic, but would have been kind of more Hiberno-Roman style ports that actually may have been early versions of cities, but we need to investigate that further, more archaeological work. Okay, so they may have been proto versions of Viking cities that come along later on. So yeah, coins dominate cities, and if we had cities during the Roman period, not the Romans in Ireland, but the Romans that had been raiding into Rome, bringing stuff that back, and then introduced Hiberno. So we went kind of from the quote unquote Celtic culture into then Hiberno Roman culture. And then with that, we may have built ports, which may be the proto to the later Viking cities, perhaps. But, you know, that's all hearsay. But yeah, so we were a kettle culture in the countryside, and then in the cities, we were a coin culture. Complicated, yes. Brilliant, also, yes. Had dinner before Irish dance class. Oh, you do Irish dance class? Lucky. I haven't done Irish dancing since I was a wee baba when I was 5, going to my Irish school. I miss Irish school so much. Up until the 70s, I believe. Yeah, the gun laws in Ireland. Jim O'Neill, were you up in the north and stuff? Bum, 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 bum. Richie, you're trying to get me into trouble, aren't you? Bum, bum, bum. I'm just quickly scanning through this here so I can catch up. I'll skip the gun stuff so I don't get into trouble. Because we already have one ghost that suddenly appeared. I think you're just taking the piss. We'll take it you're just banter right now. Win is in the comment section. Champion right is what we call. I'm just going to quickly put your thing there, Brian. If I've skipped anything else that's really important, I apologize about that. Munster should have made a move for Ulster. But we did. Sure, is that not what Brian Brew's expansion was? Is there any other time that we should have expanded up to north to the Kennet-owned territories? I'm not sure. We did during the Philmid McCurran era, and we did during the period of Brian Brew. So I think we did when we could, from my understanding. When you should try building a Gundam kits for once. They're pretty cool. What? Okay. Random. We're talking about Irish medieval history, so if you want to talk about Irish medieval history, that's always good. My Oregon breed dozens of boiled eggs for supper time. Oh man, I can actually. Do you know what? I bitch about when I normally compare like sausages and potatoes and especially cheese in Japan. It's terrible here. Like, don't get me wrong, Japanese food like sushi and ramen. Oh, absolutely amazing. If I ever moved, I'd miss it so much. But eggs in Japan are actually the greatest ever. Like, they are so insanely delicious and so good. Like, in every other country, like Ireland, America, there's a certain level of like bad bacteria and funny stuff going on there. Japan, you can eat eggs raw. You can literally get a raw egg in Japan and eat it and not suddenly get sick. They're so because there's nothing dodgy going on with the egg whatsoever. And that's because after World War II, the Japanese prioritized their eggs because it was cheaper. It was actually cheaper where everybody else was getting more into especially America started getting more into the big fancy industrial style standard of food production and stuff, which ends up having eggs getting very funny and stuff. And it was the same thing in Ireland and all those places and stuff. Japan was super, super poor, so they couldn't do any of that stuff. So they started prioritizing their eggs. And so what happened is that today, Japanese eggs are insanely healthy for you. They're so good. There's Americans, I know Californians that come here to Okinawa, not only because they have American friends who are working with the U.S. Marines, but they also get involved with the martial arts, like the UFC and stuff. And they buy all their eggs because you can drink them like raw here and not have to worry about some salmonella. Compared to when you're in Europe and America, where if you get the egg and you break it and you like make a drink out of it, you have a chance of getting like salmonella and all that kind of stuff. And that does not happen with Japanese eggs. You can have like proper natural eggs here and not have to worry about half that stuff compared to other countries because I for ages was like, why not just get free range eggs and stuff? And sometimes they can be a bit funny. So definitely, like, even if you're purchasing your eggs and stuff, do your research, especially if you want to eat them raw. Those problems don't, from my understanding, those problems do not pop up in Japan because of how much money they put into it. So just like in the medieval period where you could eat your eggs raw and stuff and not have to worry about the same kind of bacteria that you have today, it's the same thing in Japan because since World War II, they put a lot of money into it because it was just cheaper because they didn't have any money after the war for obvious reasons. Where are the potatoes? We're talking medieval, man. Potatoes don't come into full fashion until after the Tudor period. And then the Irish are kind of forced to eat it because the English robbed our food. The British were robbing it to feed their British Empire going into India. So we were left just with the potatoes. And then the potato became a main staple diet going into 1920 all the way up to the Celtic Tiger. And then we started getting more stew mad going into the 90s and stuff to a certain degree. But then we have the housing crisis, so we're back to potatoes again. So that's why we're potato mad again, is because of the housing crisis in Ireland, which has like it's crazy because our economics is so insanely good right now in Ireland, but the balance is just like what the hell is going on? It's just it's a mess. It's so bad. And we still haven't found a genius yet to fix it between both the Irish American, because we in Ireland right now and in New York, we have some of the most talented economic fellas kicking around the place. We're just absolute geniuses, both in New York and in Dublin right now. And not a single person can fix what's going on. What the hell's going on here? Like, economic wise in Ireland with the housing crisis. Even Trump is looking at it. I was watching the interview on him and they were talking about how to fix the housing crisis in Ireland. And Trump just was like, it's too complicated because Ireland is too much on demand. That was his problem. But Trump didn't see it as a problem because there was so much money to produce. And which is also true. If you were to, like some people, even last week, were protesting to get the Americans out and the Irish Americans out of Ireland. And I was talking about this actually on my Patreon as well. That wouldn't fix the problem. It would make it worse because then there's no work. So not only would you have a housing crisis, but now you've got no money too. At least this way, there's money in the country, but there's just no houses, you know? And that's complicated. And also on top of that, trying to get the money around the place is also very, very funny. But there's a lot of stuff happening behind closed doors too. So that's also quite funny, which we'll not get into because I'll get into trouble. Bum, 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 bum. Right, this is the part of medieval Irish history I have a problem understanding. All the modern stuff, I'd have a problem too. Brian's another person I'm literally just gonna put on show because you always have something really, really interesting in all your comments right now. Bum, bum, bum. Tom Cooley is another one that just pops up in every bloody conversation. I should just have a permanent picture of the Tom Cooley up there. That and Fergus Kelly's Early Irish Law. Do I have 1 second? Can I click on 1 second? Actually, I'll just go back to a picture of me, so I'm waffling shit anyway. Dun, 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 dun. 1 second. I'll see what pictures I actually have on my desktop right now. Nothing useful. I deleted a lot of stuff. I've booked. Okay, that's not handy. What's this one? Way too many pictures. I've Gerald of Wales here. Look at old Gerald of Wales. Oof. Isn't he great? What am I doing with my life? I'm just playing with this one. I'm actually seeing what books I have. Just to randomly click on. Bum, bum, bum. See if I can find what's his name? Fergus Kelly's Brehon Law, because you guys need to seriously read that book, especially for next week. I'll have that book for sure next week because God, that'll pop up so many times during the conversation to cat rating. I don't have it right now. I just have my Norman stuff on from last week. Gerald of Wales. Actually, I might switch Gerald of Wales because I don't want to talk about him. I've talked about Gerald of Wales too much. We'll talk about this book, which I was supposed to be talking about. Anyway, I'm the ancestor of the potato. The potato. I do like potato and butter. Right, that and some Irish pork. Not even like, don't get me wrong, I really, really, really love what was it called? Japanese ham. But oh man, I miss Irish ham, potatoes, and butter. Oh my god, I would love that right now. Bum, bum, bum. Blood of kings, of kings. I'm literally just gonna put that there, and I'm gonna put me. Can I do that there and then shove that there? Yeah, that works. Rather a woman or of course you would win. You're talking about the what was it called? Trading for silver coins and stuff, I assume. Irish till I die. Bum, 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 bum. I'm gonna quickly end up scanning through. Peter and Brian, I'm not even gonna read them anymore. I'm just gonna like press show as I'm quickly scanning down. Da, 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 da. Never known. It could move up. Was it locked? Is there? What am I? Anything saying that the Irish used? Oh, you're talking about the shields. We had that going into the 16th century. Oh, you got me thinking about shields now because we had the what was it called? Oh my god. We had the Roman shield. So at the very start and the very start of it, we have buckler shields and also we have the Roman shields, but we haven't found anything on Roman shields yet. But most likely the Clé had Roman style shields of the 5th century. Not proper, not the big massive ones, more of the overall. I suppose they're called overall. Probably butchering that word, but they were the Roman shields of the 5th century, which weren't boxy. They were kind of circlish, big, large circular things, which covered the whole body. And then they had the bucklers, the small little circle ones, and they would have the bucklers all the way up to all throughout the entire time, like. But the Targe shield doesn't come in until way into because I could literally waffle all day about the development of shields. I don't really have time to because I. Oh wait, actually, I'll finish up. Actually, I'll quickly finish all this and I'll buzz off away. Cause it's 12 o'clock now. I need to get everything done. I haven't even eaten. Oh wait, I have. I've eaten today. I've had stuff, junk. But yeah, the Targe doesn't come up until about the 16th century Ireland, so Renaissance Ireland. We have the Targe shields. They only in the late medieval period the connection of the Spanish, so they come in not from Scotland, believe it or not, but from Spain. So the Targe shield, that's very much a Gaelic shield, that comes in from Spain, from what I was checking up last on. Also, folks, but then there's a lot. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of shields that come in imported in from Scotland as well, but the original ones come in from Spain, the Iberian Peninsula. Also, I'm just going to quickly post that one there. And I'll shove in Brian because you always have something really smart to say. All four of my grandparents were. And you always have something smart to say, so I'll put that there. Everyone's agreeing with you, so I'm assuming that's correct because I need to finish up. Did he mention the Scots were from Ireland? We're not talking about that today. We'll talk about that some other time. What color is the yolk in Japanese? It's yellow. I'm assuming that's the healthy stuff. Traditional medieval Irish Tudor. No potatoes. Potatoes come in around the old after the Tudor period. And then our food groups go to hell. What was it going into because people are like, why does Ireland have so much white people food, which is plain and boring food, and poverty, plain and simple, like too poor. Every time we get rich, Ireland starts getting really good. The food just goes boom, absolutely fully amazing. Irish food right now is funny because we have Ireland itself. Get this, Ireland itself right now is going through a Chinese Irish food. Chinese Irish food dominates Ireland right now. It's just that is the food that comes over here. The Chinese have been in Ireland since the 60s, and so they dominate a lot of the food that's in Ireland right now. And the food you've got the Irish Chinese snack box and everything. So if you haven't tried out Chinese Irish food, like even Gaelic, garlic chips and cheese and everything, like they just like pretty much it's not actually Chinese food per se, but that's the food that like that whole circle of food is food that dominates Ireland right now. So the likes of Irish Chinese snack box, garlic chips and cheese, all that stuff that's proper like Irish food. It's within that whole bracket of food that came in the 60s with the Chinese that immigrated over to Ireland. So it's Irish Chinese food that just dominates Ireland right now, and it's it's so good. Like ribs and chips, which is for the Irish Americans will be kind of like ribs and French fries or stuff. That is just, but that's been in Ireland before coming of the Chinese. It's just the Chinese, that whole culture just dominates. But it's not like Chinese food whatsoever. It is not Chinese food. It's more like it is Irish food, but it's that mixing of the Chinese that came in the 60s, like. Cauldron culture, stew culture. Stews are absolutely like that stew culture. We were making a lot of stews in the 90s and stuff, and it was just, and that's like a lot of times people want to bring back more of that style of culture because of food making and stuff, because it's more kind of traditional and that kind of stuff. But we just don't have the money to be producing it, because stews are just so kind of time restricting and stuff. It's easier to put together and arrange food that's kind of more kind of that kind of Irish Chinese kind of food, you know, that kind of quicker to make spices and stuff. That you see in Ireland, and it's funny because it's only in Ireland, and the reason why it's considered Irish Chinese food is because that wave of food making came in with the Chinese in the 60s, you know? And it's still like we have Chinese restaurants today in Ireland, but they're more like Irish Chinese restaurants than Chinese restaurants. There is Chinese restaurants starting to come into Ireland, but most of them, which are ran by Asian Irish people, are more like Asian Chinese restaurants than Chinese or anything like that. It's fun. I love it. Good energy. The Scots were pre-migraine, Dalriada, Irish immigrants. I'll just put that one there. Actually, it's easier. No free labor talk. Ooh, who was talking about free labor? Or was I talking about earlier with the old Kotlin stuff? Um, ba, ba, ba. I needed to go 5 minutes ago. I'm going to quickly scan through the rest of these. I was told. I'm so sorry if I skip some really good stuff in here. I was told once by an Irishman, if I ever come to Ireland, I could probably find my ancestors' homeland abandoned. Yeah, most likely. Because there's so many, like, we even lost, there's so many surnames, like McCaffrey and stuff. I think the McCaffreys are gone from Ireland. They only exist in with the Irish American community. They don't exist anymore in Ireland. Jim O'Neill's ancestors' DNA is a good place to start. Yeah, I would definitely agree. Wayne is a good person to chat to when it comes down to finding those connections, aren't you, Wayne? Irish would have had small shields, wouldn't they? Small shields seem to dominate throughout. Like even in the very start, like the very start, early medieval period in the 5th century, it is Hiberno-Roman culture that dominates Ireland. We kind of there's no more of that kind of pure Celtic Ireland. We kind of gone into that period of Niall of the Nine Hostages, so it's more of that kind of Hiberno-Roman culture. But you're right, like small buckler shields dominate that era because of calibrating. Like they're so good for not just skirmishing in large battles, but also for calibrating as well. Like bucklers are just so good. Bam, bam, bam. And we have the same bucklers like throughout from the early medieval period all the way to the late medieval period. It's the same buckler types that pop up again and again and again. They're so good for martial arts, you know, because it's easy to move the buckler around and just you're not looking to cover your body. You're just looking to parry, block, and then stab or thrust, depending on what secondary weapon you have. Well, what main weapon you have, like, or if depending if you're switching to secondary weapon or not. I also read somewhere years ago that the O'Neill's land was 3 to 4. Yeah, as I was saying earlier, it can be funny owning land and stuff. Plus, on top of that, that starts to go outside my field of expertise after that. But I have the map here. Where am I? But basically, yeah, the O'Neills would have dominated the north, but where they're pasturing and all that kind of stuff, it varies depending on season and year and what's going on and all that kind of stuff. Medieval, any idea what the full? I need to speed this up a wee bit. Any idea what the full armored gauntlet, the Gallic glass, are said to use as a shield? That depends on the era, and I will cover a bit of that next week, perhaps. But we'll also get back on Celtic Templar. We'll definitely have all the stuff to do with that stuff. He's done a good few videos in the Gallic glass, all that kind of stuff already. I need to. There are McCarthy's in County Down. McCuffrey. Oh yeah. Are they still there? I've people who are after them. All right. I make a lot of stewed potatoes. Stew potatoes. My dad actually one of the best potatoes stews I had was up in Dublin. Dublin, weirdly enough. Normally I bitch about Dublin like a lot. My hometown of Mallow has some amazing stews as well. Dublin does very good stews, and which is funny. It's very very funny because they're not even a beef people. Like Dublin, it's pork. Like Dublin has always been so good at pork. Anything to do with pork, Dublin has been always very very good at. But funny enough, I think it's because of the tourism and stuff. Their main tourist areas always produce really really good beef stews. But I think it's because of the demand for beef stews because of the tourism. I think that's why Dublin has gotten good at that compared to Mallow, where it's just naturally good at making stews. And like Mallow hates tourism. Like I'm from Mallow, and they hate tourism in Mallow. Like they're just a 9 to 5 farmer people. Like you know, right. I make a lot of stewed potatoes, carrots, onions, garlic. Oh, you're a typical Gaelic. You are an O'Neill. No problems with that one. That's a proper traditional stew there, like you know. Dublin Queens are the best spuds for a stew. Mm, I definitely would agree with that as well. Like anyway, I need to bugger off there. And what do I need to do there? I'm gonna. What time is it now? 12. Make food. I've got sausages there. And I'll probably put on some rice, mushrooms and stuff. So I'll probably make myself a mushroom sausage and rice thing of some sort. Make something like that anyway. We'll see what I'll do. But I will next week. Right. So over my Patreon, I will be. If you guys want to pop over to my Patreon, just click wherever your link is. Pop on over there. I'll be on Patreon on Sunday, where I will be covering the clans and families of the Norman invasion of Ireland between 1169 to 1175. So if you want to cover families and clans, head over to my Patreon. 20 quid a month for those classes and stuff. This month, this week, this Sunday, we're covering clans and families during the Norman invasion of Ireland. So if you want to jump in for that stuff, 20 quid a month, or if you just want to support the channel, because YouTube demonetizes me like all the time, and I'm demonetized right now. So definitely pop over there if you want to support the channel. And also, what else do I need to do? So that's Sunday. Sunday, I am covering the Norman invasion of Ireland, the families and clans that were involved with that, both the Gaelic and the Norman families there. Next Thursday, that's the one. Next Thursday, I will be on again with Dr. Owen O'Neill and Micheál from Clans and Dynasties, and we will be covering cattle raiding. So we'll be covering all the Tuatha, the clans, the dynasties, all that kind of stuff for cattle raiding. So definitely pay attention to that. Everything you need to know about cattle raiding. We will try to cover that in the 2 hours. If we don't, there's always more live streams we can do. Other than that, guys, thank you so much, and slán.